landmark lawsuit that the National Association of Realtors are paying a $418 million settlement to settle the court cases of several plaintiffs who are saying that they shouldn't have been paying buyer agent commission. And they definitely shouldn't have been paying buyer agent commission in the way that it has been done for so many years, just as the way it is supposed to be, or the way it's always been done. And I agree with it. You know, first and foremost, I think this is a change for good in our industry, and that we're going to align more towards compensation being in alignment with the amount of value and services being provided by buyer's agents. So let me go over some of the key components of this lawsuit. So it's going to prohibit that on the MLS, it advertises how much buyers are going to be making. It's also going to require that buyer's agents have a written agreement in place with their buyers prior to showing them homes. And the way that it's been done in the past is that you'll just go and show a home for a buyer because it was advertised that if you sold this home or you brought a buyer to this home, you'd earn fill in the blank, 2% or 2.5% or 3% of the purchase price. Regardless of how long you've known that client, what type of services you provided for them, or how many houses you've shown them, you're going to get paid a flat amount that was predetermined, not based on the value and the services you're providing to the buyer, but just predetermined by what the seller was going to pay for the sale of that home. And so going forward, what that's going to look like is that the listing agent will negotiate with the seller how much the listing agent is going to be paid for the services that they're providing and helping sell their home, but it's going to be in negotiations if a seller is going to pay buyer's agents anything or how much for the compensation of bringing a buyer to the table. So what's going to happen is that it's going to force the model to change. Instead of buyer's agents just being so willing to show anybody homes because they're sure that the seller's going to pay the commission, it's going to force those buyer's agents to have a meeting, have a strategy session, have a discussion with the buyers around what they're looking for, what that buyer agent provides in terms of value and services and an experience and help throughout the whole process, and then agree with that buyer on what they're going to be charging them for those services. So that might be 1%, that might be 2%, it might be 5% if the level of value and services being provided are in alignment with that amount. But it's going to require buyer's agents to level up their game, to be professionals who are adding value and not just opening doors. And it's going to require them to be able to communicate that value to buyers in a way that gets them to agree that, yes, I will pay you 3% for all of the value and services you are providing if we can't get the sellers to pay that. And so to be clear, sellers are still going to be able to pay buyer agent commission. It's just going to have to be negotiated. And sellers are going to have the opportunity to not pay a buyer agent commission, which they already have. It just was more difficult in the past to do it that way. And it isn't until recently that people have really started doing that. How's it going to impact sellers? It's going to put sellers in the driver's seat. They're going to be able to have more flexibility and control over how much commission they pay to a buyer's agent, if any. So, think about it. If you're a seller who sold their home in the heat of the market, the height of the market in 2020 and 2021, and you had 30 offers on the table for your property, don't you think that maybe you could have negotiated with one of those property owners to not pay a buyer's agent commission and save 2.5% or 3%, put more money in your pocket because the market dictated and your property dictated a high enough demand for your property that you didn't need to do that? And maybe some of those buyer agents on the other side of things only provided a level of service that was opening a door for somebody they just met and would be comfortable with a lower percentage compensation for bringing that buyer to the table. But because of the antiquated, outdated way of doing things, you had to decide up front that I was going to pay a flat fee, 2.5% or 3%. No matter how many buyers agents brought offers, no matter what type of demand was on my property, and no matter what level of services those buyers provided, I was just going to pay the same flat amount no matter what. This is going to give you the flexibility as a seller to more align the amount that you're paying a buyer agent, if anything, with the individual characteristics of your home and your transaction and the market in which you're selling it in. And that is a positive. For your buyers, it's going to give them more control over the level of services and value that they're being provided. Because of this, it's going to require buyer agents to fight for those buyer agency agreements, which is going to in turn result in a better product for those buyers, because they're going to be able to decide if they feel they're competent enough to be able to go through negotiations and all they really want is somebody to open a door for them, then they'll be able to negotiate a lower rate, maybe 1% or a flat fee. But if you're a buyer that's looking for a unicorn of a property, a 15-acre mini farm in Lee County that has been updated, and that product is not on the market, and you want a buyer's agent who's going to go out and hunt for that, search off market for that, do direct mail for that, make outbound phone calls to landowners and property owners that do not have their properties for sale, then that compensation might be more in line with those services because they're doing more for your business. They're doing more for you. And I think that is a positive. You are not going to pay the same amount to a brain surgeon who is going to perform complex surgery to remove a tumor from your medulla oblongata, right, as you're going to pay your primary care physician to subscribe you antibiotics for an ear infection, right? The level of services and the expertise that are being provided is in line with the compensation. And that's what's going to change for our industry. To paint a picture even further, in the past, right, a $500,000 home offering to pay 3% commission to a buyer's agent for bringing them a home is going to pay that same 3% whether that seller has been working with that client for 6 months and showed them 100 homes and has 24 years of experience and really is catering to the needs of that client, as it would if that agent just took a Zillow call today, went and opened one door for him, didn't know the client yesterday. Those two agents are going to make the same amount of money on that property. And is that right? Is that fair? I don't think so. I think this is going to move us toward a more fair environment where buyer's agents have to be able to articulate their value and get paid according to the value that they deliver and the value that they can communicate and negotiate with their clients. So, personally, I think this is a very positive move for our industry. I think the way that we did things before was a little antiquated. It was out of touch with the way that a free market society and capitalism work. And I think that this is going to move us forward in a way that helps the true professionals in our industry stand out even more. I do think it's going to push some agents out who are part-time, who can't articulate their value or don't have value to bring to the table. And it's going to push those agents out because it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to compete with the agents who are going to level up, who are going to work on the value proposition that they're bringing to the table, and who are going to ultimately gain more market share because of this. So if you've got any questions about how this impacts you as a buyer or how it impacts you as a seller, I'd be glad to take your call to exchange emails, texts, however you prefer to communicate, and tell you what I think about how that impacts the local market here in Sanford and how we do business between real estate professionals, buyers, and sellers. So again, if you have any questions at all, drop a comment below. I'm Walter Susevich, Sanford Surrounded, who helps you with your home matters.